Jonah Orion Wheeler, born March 1st, 2003, is an American politician and currently serving as a member of the New Hampshire House of Representatives representing Hillsborough County District 33, which encompasses Petersboro and Sharon for the Democratic Party. Wheeler assumed office on December 7th, 2022, having been sworn in when he was only 19 years old. He was among the youngest state legislators in the United States. And I want to do a story about this man, real short story, young man, young bright man, regardless of party affiliation. I felt a need to run this story, try to get this young man on the map, because look, he went into the New Hampshire legislature as a Democrat, and he self-proclaims that he is an independent thinking Democrat, most notably on the recent House Bill 148 that passed the New Hampshire House of Representatives that ban men in women's spaces, locker rooms, showers, bathrooms, wherever biological women deserve the right to have their safe space independent of men. He voted on a bill that keeps women safe, and boy, is he catching heat from members of his own party. Let's check out the video.
But Mr. Speaker, the powerful anecdotes of one person and the consent of one person cannot stand for the consent of another person. And if there are women who feel unsafe, if there are women who feel like their space has become not private, then we should listen to those women. And just because a small segment of the population would like those policies to accommodate them over women doesn't mean that we here today can do that. So, Mr. Speaker, for us, and I pause because my colleagues are walking out as I give this speech. People are clapping in the gallery for their walking out. And Mr. Speaker, I think that illustrates exactly why I got up here today. I could have quietly voted my conscience, could have followed the party line, but Mr. Speaker, again, the consent of one person cannot stand for the consent of another. And just because one person is comfortable with a transgender woman being in the bathroom with them or playing sports with them or being in a prison with them doesn't mean that another woman is. And these issues do not have to cause violence. These conversations can be nuanced, and we can have conversations about treating each other with respect and humanity, and putting in place policies that say that women who were born women deserve a space to themselves, whether that be the bathroom or sports or the locker room or prisons, is not transphobic. And there are people in my town, there are people throughout the country who are liberal, left-leaning people who agree with what I just said here, but some of them won't vote with me here. Some of them, in fact, have left the party in my town. There was just a woman last week who left my party because she felt not only was she not being heard, but she felt like there was no way for her to even speak up about this position. And given how many people are still in their seats, I can understand why. The orthodoxy of the Democratic Party on this issue has left us to where we can't have nuanced discussions, and women are being silenced in this conversation. As much as people don't want to hear that, that is what is happening. And when I talked to people on this side of the issue and this side of the issue, I heard, I don't want any violence to happen against me. I don't want to be disrespected or unheard. I heard that from transgender individuals, and I heard that from women. So, Mr. Speaker, I think HB 148, legislation which enables localities, municipalities, and businesses to put in place specific policies around definitions of sex, is not a right-wing, fascist, Nazi movement like I've been told that it is. I was called a Nazi for the prospect of giving this speech. I mean, I don't think that your position or side benefits from calling the other a Nazi when they are trying to ask genuine questions about women's spaces and the protection of women inside those spaces. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a controversial topic. I absolutely understand that, and I apologize that we had to clear out half the room for it. But municipalities, localities, private gyms, prisons, these places should be able to put in place policies which, in limited circumstances, separate people based off of biological sex. And I ask that the members on this side who have to feel the pressure of the orthodoxy on them would consider the alternative side and consider not calling them bigots or racists or homophobes or transphobes just because we certainly have questions about women's spaces and the protection of women within them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, just in case you missed it, the New Hampshire House Bill 148 2025 permits the classification of individuals based on biological sex in specific settings, including bathrooms, locker rooms, athletic competitions, prisons, juvenile detention centers, and mental health facilities. The bill, sponsored by 14 Republicans, which, as a Democrat, Mr. Wheeler supported, passed the House on March 20th, 2025 with a vote of 201 to 166 and was referred to the Senate Judiciary Committee. It adds exceptions to existing anti-discrimination laws, allowing businesses and organizations to separate services by biological sex. Supporters argue it protects biological women, which it does, in sensitive spaces, while opponents like the LGBTQ plus community advocates and Democrats criticize it as discriminatory and harmful to transgender individuals, citing potential for abuse and lack of clarity in defining biological sex. There is no lack of clarity. President Trump signed an executive order since he's been in office that a biological man is a man and a biological female is a female. If you were born a male, you're a man. If you were born a female, you're a female. There is no lack of clarity. The only lack of clarity that people have is because they're Satan's children. And I'm really sorry to say that. Right? So real quickly, let me get into Jonah Wheeler's voting positions since he's been in office. So we already spoke about the transgender rights and women's spaces. HB House Bill 148, he voted for along with 14 other Republicans. All right. Ban on gender affirming care surgeries for minors. He supports the ban. Gender related health care protections. Wheeler voted for HB 368, which provides legal protections for individuals receiving gender-related health care, such as prohibiting New Hampshire from enforcing out-of-state orders to remove a child from a home based on a parent allowing gender-affirming care. Mr. Wheeler supports marijuana usage or marijuana legalization. He supports the Child Care Workforce Fund, I think it's like a centralized fund that helps parents afford childcare while both parents are working. He supports the firearm background checks and mental health. So he supports the bill that if you have some sort of mental health crisis or whatever that went on in the past, that you should be heavily scrutinized before purchasing a firearm. He voted to require state and local law enforcement to notify the public before immigration checkpoints. So there are areas within the United States, especially New Hampshire, that's the state we're talking about. He wants the public to be notified before law enforcement sets up illegal alien checkpoints to round them up, put them in jail, and then eventually deport them. He does not support parents' Bill of Rights and education. So he believes that parents do not have a say in public schools and what their children are being taught. So there's a number of these, and I will end with this. When you heard the young man speak, did he sound like a fascist, a Nazi, a racist, a xenophobe, a transphobe? No. He was simply saying, and he said it over and over again, the rights of one group or the rights of a minority group, such as the LGBTQ plus community, when we're talking about the issue of men and women's sports and bathrooms and locker rooms and showers, should not override the overall broader constituent of women in New Hampshire, especially the District 33 that he represents. You want to talk about, if you go against the Democratic Party narrative, you are going to be called childish names by the Democratic Party, especially the radical left. I think Mr. Wheeler is a centrist. I think he's an old school Bill Clinton Democrat. He's an old school Kennedy Democrat. He's an old school. All the Democrats from the 80s and 90s were considered old school. I was an old school Democrat, and then I just switched to the Republican Party in 2021. But we're not talking about me. We're talking about Mr. Wheeler and what he said, what he stands for, especially this particular issue when it comes to men and women's spaces that should be totally 100% dedicated to women. They're taking showers, they're switching over, they're changing clothes. There should not be a male in those spaces. And it seems like it's common sense to me, but Satan has a hold over the minds of the donors that the radical left are pleasing. Because if the radical left Democrats do not please their donors, then the donors stop donating to their campaigns. And that goes from presidential prospects all the way down ballot to your most local area elections. And so there is a fear that the radical left has, even if they think something is common sense. They won't say it in public. They won't say it out loud. They'll have a conversation about it with their closest family and friends about how they really feel. But when they get out in public, they toe the party line and they support the donors' wishes to turn this world upside down. We need more men like him. Hey, from the U.S. House of Representatives, Byron Donalds, please look this guy up, take him under your wing, because I do believe that we can recruit this young fella and bring him into the fold in our ranks with the Conservative Party. Mr. Wesley Hunt and Tim Scott from U.S. Senate, please contact Mr. Wheeler. Have a conversation with him face to face if you can. See where he's coming from. We may not agree on all the issues, but on common sense issues such as banning men and women spaces. I think that there's enough common ground there to work with who I deem is a centrist. So, Mr. Wheeler, congratulations on being one of the youngest New Hampshire representatives that got elected into office to represent District 33. Godspeed, and in the same way that I had asked U.S. congressmen to reach out to you, I would ask you to reach out to them as well for counseling and grooming in a manner that brings you into the fold, because we need young guys like you. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.